I'm Gloria. I think most of you know me, editor of Červená Barva Press. And tonight we're celebrating Andrey's new book, Crossing the Line, and this is it. And let me put this bigger so you can see better. There we go. And this is his book. And just recently, the press has turned 21, and I have known Andrey, I think, for almost that many years. And since then, we have become the best of friends. And Andrey is also contributing editor of Červená Barva Press, too. And I'm really honored and very happy to have him become a part of the press. It means a lot to me. And so Crossing the Line is actually the third book that I published of Andrey's. His other two books are Live Landscape and Family Chronicles. Andrey has had books published in both Russian and English. With English as his second language, he has no trouble at all adapting to America culture, and he has been here since 1981. The three books of his that I published are all different. Andrey has a strong sense of self, and his books feel like him looking back on his life from the back seat as an observer. His use of imagery across all three books is really beautiful. It is noted that Franz Kafka is important to both this book and to Andrey. Kafka is such a significant literary figure, and much of his work centers around the human experience. In the afterword in Andrey's book, Ilya Kaminsky writes, "From a certain point onward, there is no longer any turning back. That is the point that must be reached." I absolutely love this quote by Kafka. It is deep, yet one that is answered. In Andrey's writing, there is a sense of movement, departures, new skies, and a reinvented life. Life is life, and there will be changes, but he writes about them with wisdom and clarity, and we all in our lives keep moving. Andrey is actually one of my favorite writers. I can't get enough of his work. It makes me tick, and that is actually the biggest compliment I can give anyone, is saying that, even though it's a weird expression. You know, his writing is just amazing. His poetry and essays I can read over and over again, and I keep discovering like new things. As a writer, Andrey makes me want to write. And as a publisher, I want to keep sharing his work with the world. Andrey's work, I feel, is truly a gift, and something when you read it, you hold it in your memory. Besides writing, Andrey is also the editor and publisher of the international magazine Interpoesia. This magazine brings cultures together through poetry. The magazine was founded in 2004, so that's a long time to have the magazine going, and congratulations, Andrey, on that. That's remarkable. And now for a little bit more about Andrey. He's a physician, poet, essayist, writes in 2 languages. He has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize several times and shortlisted for the PSA Poetry Prize. His poems, essays, and short stories have appeared in numerous journals, such as the New Orleans Review, Notre Dame Review, Denver Quarterly, and is anthologized and translated into several European languages. And then after the reading, I will be asking Andrey some questions, so I ask that you all stay muted. And the questions will give you an idea more about his book. And now I give you Andrey.
Thank you very much, Gloria. That's been really lucky stroke when we met. I believe it was kind of online, and you told me that you'd like to take to have an interview for the newsletter, and that's how kind of we started. So that was very, very lucky, fortunate for me. And you virtually co-author of this book. We did a lot of work together. I have to mention actually three other people who contributed to this book. It's wonderful New York visual artists, Slava Polishchuk and Asya Dodina. They have amazing New York City kind of a gray cityscapes, which I like very much, and they are very close to my kind of inner landscape. So they did a cover for this book, and they did illustrations for my recent Russian book. And another person who contributed a lot is a very well-known, wonderful poet Ilya Kaminsky, who wrote an afterword for this book. Anyway, so I will read a few poems from the book, and if Gloria allows, a few newer poems. So, Crossing the Line, title poem. The world was glistening inside my soft universe, in the filigreed web of warmth, pulsating and feeding my unborn hopes, tentacles of attachments, frustrations, death. I could have been a father, a sister, carpenter, savior, the judge and executioner. My actuarial survival was not yet registered. The winds of unknowing caressed my mother's skin, and the pain was vanishing because I didn't exist anymore. I was not accounted for. And still, brothers and sisters, we were bonded and floating together in the shared hardship, for only you could appreciate my gift to you, my silent grace, the gentle beauty, dignity, and what I wouldn't have done to the world. And remember, there are the others for whom not only I, but also you are a mistake. White lies. I live my life by white lies, and poetry is white lies. Second language is white lies also, as well as the first. But language is the only way to hide love, white, black, transparent, or otherwise invisible. So all day long, all life long, I say white lies to hide my love. In fact, I never know to whom. It may be to you, but if I say it, it would be a white lie. What once it is said in a poem, it stays, and as a bird flies away in search of its destiny. Just give me a second. I have to get a glass of water because there are so many established poets listening to me right now. I'm very honored. Just a sec. Rome Colosseum, geometry of death, sun-blasted oval, sun-blasted stone, stale bread, a song of wind long gone to the groves of memory, interlacement, entwinement on the twilight of the valley, a tourist trap by day, cemetery of stone at night. Now we know, salt on the soil of Carthage, salt beneath Masada, they had sailed on the sails toward nothingness of the bloodhounds of dead Caesars to the dead end. We float on the somnolent siesta of Italian shadows in the courtyard. Pasta is fresh, sauce of the ancient recipe, like sun blasting impartially, blissfully melting makeup on the mask of a face of a lively tour guide of the Berber origin with name of Doti on the t-shirt. Light in the cathedral. Light from nowhere to nowhere. Rack of statues on the tiled floor. Dark crypt is empty. Judas silent in the corner. And he is invisible in the chapel. There is cold and echo of emptiness. There is nobody to wait for. Crosses deserted in the dusk. Still light fell on the floor reveals the fragments of the marble dream. Cathedral under repair. Shadows. And you and I are alone there. Metro North. It's a New York poem. Chelsea, Manchester United. He is on the corner sofa, roasted chicken from the tops, German-style potato salad, Heineken Light, Chelsea, an accidental goal served from the corner. Abramovich will sack the manager again, he thinks. He's in the city, way back in the motel by LaGuardia with her lover, then lunch at the Sheraton, now boutiques in Soho, dead calm, he thinks. Time to treat the porch, overtime, one more Heineken, calls her again and again, phones in the car. She remembers, pick up low pressor for him, Blahnik before close, leaves grow rusty, emerald mornings, echo from Metro North, dying in crisp autumn air, dying on the way to the invisible island. Translingual poetry, it's called. Actually, it's real objects described here. I still have the snuff box right here in my study. Snuff box, aluminum from Messerschmitt, soldiered red star of stained glass. To Colonel Yakov Abramovich Gritsman from the GIs of 222nd Division, 33rd Red Army, 3rd Belarusian Front, Western Region. Location now, bookshelf, restoration hardware, between Kafka and Celan. A. Gritsman, MD, 210 Riverside Drive, 7D, New York, New York, 125, Rauchen nicht verboten. Don't look back. Don't even talk about returning. The past becomes a worn-out coin. Preserved gone sour. You learn signs of the departure. Train car moving nowhere. Airport terminal, silent octopus. Mufflers, machine gun series. Smoke over trembling road. Still life of abandoned family. Table with a lone parent. If you close your eyes, you find yourself among mirror images of your family portrait. Then you understand you are already there, just a flicker in the morning reflection. Villa Borghese, Rome, obviously. As you leave the place, leaves fall down, sundown lingers, and then it's gone. The place stays still as time passes, unnoticed by anyone but you. Then someone else comes, looks at the sunset, drops a cigarette stub into dry foliage, a paper napkin, a note on someone's card. Then he goes too, on his way around the circle. You remember that bittersweet, warm smell of magnolias, maple, the rustle of the cracked fountain. Late sun touches the statue with its disfigured, unrecognizable face. You are calm and happy for the moment. The salvation is that you couldn't even know you were not the only one there. Gloria, I was thinking maybe enough with the book and I read a few new poems. Is that okay with you? Or
Yes, of course. You can read what you would like.
Golden Hour. So these are, well, relatively new. Golden hour. Golden hour, actually, it's a military medical term. First 60 minutes after traumatic injury, crucial for prompt treatment, which dramatically increases survival chances. That was a couple of footnotes. That was especially introduced during the Korean War and Vietnam War. It was established. And then the term triage station, where wounded soldiers are divided in three categories. The ones who can be easily treated and sent back to the front line, the ones who are hopeful, and the ones who, that are hopeless. And with a absolutely new wave of drone warfare, it becomes increasingly completely obsolete. So it's called golden hour. There is no golden hour anymore to save you, to save me, to save anybody, anytime, anywhere, under fire. Stop the hemorrhage, obstruction, shock. Like my father did in the swamps of Belarus, fields of Silesia, ruins of Berlin. This age of progress, AI, postmodern space travel, but you don't have to worry anymore to rush to safe, to transport to the safe space. Pinned down under the onslaught of deadly birds, target on every limb, on every forehead, and every heart. So you don't get to see anymore GIs at the triage station pouring cold water from the kettle at the contorted limbs with kozolgia, and useless medevac is dormant in the nearby grove. Um, in my dream, sunlit porch, rocking chair still swaying lightly, light dimming afternoon, whiskey tumbler, ice cube melting, tabby cat positioned on the wicker table, observing air, darkening fields, lights flickering on the distant county road, sundown, shadows passing behind the trees. Cat jumps down lightly, disappearing behind the porch out into the imminent night. This actually will read, it's called Cafe Wa. I would dedicate this to the memory of dear friend, great poet Baron Wormser, with whom we did a lot of jazz and blues bars and literary clubs in New York. And well, I don't think with this audience I have to explain what Cafe Wa is. It's where, you know, Bob Dylan started, and Jimi Hendrix and a bunch of other people. Cafe Wa, back room, smell of refried fries, chicken wings, late supper, smoke, sweat on the guitar. No John tonight. Sad, not sorry. Ahead, long and winding road. Wind is still blowing. Alone, not lonely. Down rumble, slow train coming of age. Destination unknown. Tracks frozen. Now times have changed beyond recognition. But the spirit's still in the back room, behind the bar, alone and playing, as long as breath is blowing, as long as fries simmering. Um, Early spring. The trees are still silent, too early, but snowless. Cats and the wind at the window, sensing some life outside, unknowable to me. Sealed in my car, I think of answers, but pointless, It's snowless. The trees are silent, still early. Better watch the lights. Events in the rear view may appear closer than they are. Phosphenes. If you press on your eyeballs, mysterious luminous floating stars, zigzags, swirls, spirals appear in the ice without light actually entering the ice. The same effect may result from cosmic radiation. Astronauts experience that on the cosmic orbit when electromagnetic radiation from Earth was waning. And then I understood that I had seen these phosphenes all my life, circles, labyrinths, and DNA spirals. And they actually smell phosphorus, cosmos, unknown city, mountain road. And I understood where the poems come from. They're kind of phosphenes. You don't even have to close your eyes. You press on your internal eye and they appear and never vanish. Their appearance is inevitable. They don't disappear. They live inside you and probably after you're gone. Although I can't be sure about it since I never lived after myself, after my own life, at least so far. But I seriously suspect that. Personal history. Darkness still covers the vast plains. Time zone is immeasurable. Permafrost still harbors oil, gas, gold, and some other curious organic remnants of the past and the present. Narrow gauge, abandoned and rusty. Stalin and Trotsky are still at odds with each other, and Brodsky never returned to his place of burial on the island. World War goes on with the brief interruptions for more accumulation of ashes to ashes. And I still argue over beer with my schoolmate soccer buddy over the Soviet invasion of Prague, while my parents still waiting for me to come to dinner on two different continents. So I think that's it. I can read one more, or it's enough probably.
Please read one more.
Silence is a grateful state of soul when you can hear grass growing, deep underground rivers flowing to the precipice, cats conversing about us, watching our irreconcilable deficiencies, your voice from the past calling me, explaining what happened and what could have happened. And I just welcome this silence with open arms all years, still earning this last word, hoping it's not the last. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Andrey. I loved hearing the poems from the book, and your new poems were just lovely in that. So thank you. And now we're going to move into the questions this evening that have to do with Andrey's book. And the first question for you, Andrey, is Carmen Ferran refers to your work as standing at the border of dreams. Do dreams or the subconscious play a role in your creative process?
Yes. I was thinking about this question, and it occurred to me actually. Katya suggested that Carmen Ferran and myself are from Eastern Europe. So the mentality is, I guess, somewhat different. We have, in a way, common kind of mentality, kind of common psyche, which we're kind of dreamers. And the whole poetry is subconscious process. before it gets into before it becomes literature. A poem exists before it's put on the page. Okay, so that's why she probably correctly said about border of dreams. Um, it's so subconscious. Yes, of course, it plays the main role in the creative process, in my opinion. Because, well, I mean, there are some good poems that are kind of come as a rational decision. Let's write about that. That usually happens when you deal with some interesting event or some news or something like that. But basically something that is being it's growing inside you as a dream. Did I answer kind of your question?
Yes, yes, that was fine. The second question, how do you balance everyday language with deeper philosophical reflection in your work?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't consciously balance at all everyday language with philosophical reflection. In fact, the more everyday language in poetry and less goddamn poetry in the poem is better for a poem, I think. Okay. The goal is to get away as far as possible from the customary poetic devices and to expand your vocabulary with everyday language. A philosophical reflection should come out indirectly, never postulated, never proposed. I'm doing some work on Chekhov and Chekhov influence on poetry, and it's brilliantly expressed in his short and longer um, pieces. When nothing is said directly, it implied. So therefore, I'm very much for everyday language in poetry.
Okay.
It
And the
should
third one,
it
oh,
should come out indirectly.
okay. We must talk about Chekhov. He's one of my favorites. Um, the third question, the blurb mentions your attentiveness to shifts in the psychic weather. What does that phrase mean to you, and how does it influence your poetry?
Well, I mean, frankly, I don't quite understand what it means, but I would think that it relates to the emotional roller coaster, which is typical for any person who creates something, more or less. So emotional changes, of course, they influence poetry very much. Uh, the poem may start with shift in the psychic weather uh, related to encounter with a person, piece of news, sound, smell. Um, Never consciously conceived. Occasionally, something good comes out of that, but usually there is some kind of a push, some stimulus that comes that pushes some button on you, some emotional button. That's I think what happens. Um, it's well, for instance, it could be it could be an event in person's life, and then the great poem comes out of this, not necessarily word or sound. For instance, McCartney is still here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I still wonder. Many years passed, but I still remember wonderful poem by McCartney about principle. Meg, I believe it was about your father, right? And
Yes,
so
thank you, Andrey.
yeah, sure. Well, I do remember this poem very well. So so the event like that, but that's a major event. But even something much lesser could trigger you. Okay. Next question.
Okay. Many poets explore the soul's struggles. How has your life shaped the way you write about these inner journeys?
Well, I don't want to sound too important, pompous, or pathetic, but I think that poetry is a monologue of the soul, of person's soul. It's fluid. Um, it's really story of your soul. I think the life and poetry in poet's life go autonomously. Okay, um, uh, not necessarily directly related. Like life shaped the way you write poetry. Like many times I was asked question, as your medical profession, does it influence your poetry or not? And I always say no, not really. I mean, these are two different parts of my brain, or the brain and soul, or whatever. The only thing is, coming back to language, I like to use, as you might have noticed, medical language in poetry because I think it makes it more interesting and kind of more juicy, in a way. But uh, but yeah, I mean, it's basically the poetry. The poet writes poems all his or her life, and it reflects the stages of the soul's life, so to speak. Something like that.
Okay, and then our last question. What do you hope readers will carry with them after finishing your collection?
Well, that's a very good question also. Well, first of all, as I always say, and I repeat right now, uh, poetry is in the beginning, once it's conceived by a poet, is not really a literature, right? It's a monologue of the soul. But when it becomes literature and put into manuscript, it should be an interesting reading. It's not like to show like how you are skillful with the form or how smart you are or something, but it should talk to someone. Uh, if it's a real speech of the person, it's more, as I said, monologue of the soul. Not all the poetry books, not at all, are interesting reading. Actually, uh, it's exercise, or academic exercise or whatever, but not interesting reading. So first of all, I think it should be interesting reading. Secondly, it should talk to someone. The greatest compliment in my life I received just a few days ago when I gave this book, this Crossing the Line, your book, I gave to a friend of mine who is a recent widow. These are, couple of our close friends. She lost her husband, and I gave her that book. And she called and said, you know, most part of the night I read your book, and I got much better. It really soothed me and all this. It's not because there's such that these are such great poems, but at least she felt that I'm talking to her through these poems, which means that the whatever technical skill or great it is, but there is a life speech, life voice in these poems. So that's what I hope somebody who reads this book will get from that, something to talk about, that I'm talking to someone. So maybe
Yes.
somebody else have some questions.
Would anyone like to ask Andre a question?
Yeah, there is one person, my friend, young poet from Kazakhstan, have a question.
Okay.
Interesting question. What does English allow you to express better in your poetry than in the second language? I guess in Russian. Well, that's a very good question, Medina. Actually, uh, um, because certain look, I live two lives, right? One was in Russia and my Russian mentality in a way and Russian language. And I live here longer than I lived in Russia. So some things I can better express in English because they reflect my uh, American sensibility better. Some things are better expressed Russian because they reflect my Russian sensibilities, still some residual Russian sensibility. I don't know if it answers this question. So some things I can't reveal. As a matter of fact, for instance, I tried to translate this poem, White Lies, that I read from the book right now. There is no such, it's untranslatable into Russian, white lies, like many other words in English or in American English. It's untranslatable, and I couldn't really translate. It doesn't make any sense in Russian. Anyway,
So I guess that'll be it for tonight. Again, Andrey, thank you so much for the wonderful evening and congratulations on your book.